Before we get into the episode, we would like to issue a content warning.
Due to the nature of this show, we will be discussing sensitive topics, which could include murder, violence, sexual assault, domestic abuse, animal abuse, elder abuse, alcohol, drugs, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and more. Please take this into account when deciding when, where, and if to listen. Hello and welcome to Looking for a Man in His 30s, a Criminal Minds podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Sara, and today we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 6, L.D.S.K, which first aired on November the 2nd, 2005. Well, first.
A little chat. Right, Sara, do you want to go first? Because you have a lot from this week.
Well, it's been very busy.
Yes.
This, for those who are listening, this is recorded a few weeks after the last episode. So yeah, been busy back and forth between hospitals around my area with my nephew. Don't worry, he's fine. He just got a lot of appointments. And thanks to being in hospital with my nephew, I've now got my second cold of the year in as many months. So as you can tell, I'm all a bit bunged up and stuff. If I start coughing, that's why. But yeah, so I've been grumpy, ill, but the weather's getting better and it's warmer. So yeah,
I have liked going out without a coat.
Yeah, me too. It's just nice to get the sun on your skin and not like freezing every time you leave the house.
Yep.
But I think this is the best we get. British summer's notoriously horrible, so we don't have like.
But the kids are on holiday now, so I think it's going to be a bit crap for the next 2 weeks.
Well, Easter.
Yeah, but
We'll
kids
go
are
back, and then hopefully the Wednesday's nice. But if not, it's their fault.
Yes.
Yes.
As you can tell, me and Sara blame school children for just about anything.
Yes.
So, although there are some things that we do not blame on school children, and we instead blame on the British government.
Yes. Go
on, Sara. I've led you into it.
Thank you. Well, we may have mentioned this before. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, the British government sucks. As do most governments around the world. But ours is currently trying to, how do I word this?
Step on the necks of disabled people in order to
fucking over the poor and giving to the rich.
Yeah, something like that.
So they're reducing disabled benefits in order to fill up the debt thing, whatever the frick it is.
They want to lower the national debt.
Yes,
but instead of going after people with enough money to happily pay more and not see a marked decline in their standards of life, they've decided to pick on disabled people, which odd choice for your foe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm gonna attack a disabled person. That makes sense. But you know why they do it, Sara?
Because they're assholes.
Yes, but also because people who are receiving disability benefits, like PIP, they don't have the legal might behind them, as some of the millionaires and billionaires in this country do. Those kind of people, you try and get money from them, they'll drown the British government in legal battles. Disabled people, what are they going to do? So, yeah, second person that we would like to alienate for this week, Rachel Reeves.
Or as I call her, Rachel from Accounts.
Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast, I'd stop now. Yeah. You're not going to get much better, Rach.
Yeah. Because me and many of my friends are on these disabled benefits.
Yes.
You're fucking up. our lives. Thank you.
Yeah. Some of my friends and family are also on these benefits, and it's like they barely have enough to live on when they have the benefits, and you're going to take that away. And what are they supposed to do? I don't understand what disabled people are supposed to cut out from their lives.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going on lavish holidays.
No.
They don't have a second home. See, the thing is that also, we've already had this conversation of the podcast, Sarah, so feel free to tune out. But when you cut benefits from the poor, it doesn't fill up the British government coffers like you're going to suddenly be able to do a Scrooge McDuck dive into the money.
No.
No. What it does is it makes people who are on those benefits unable to afford more stuff than they already couldn't. So then what it does is it has a knock-on effect on the NHS and on social services. So really it's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, and doesn't solve the problem, makes life harder for people on disability benefits.
Yeah.
You know, and not more importantly, but I don't know how the Labour government have not figured this out, but when you cut money from disabled people, it means they are less able to pay for things that they need in order to make their life comparable to someone who is not disabled. So depends what they need, but sometimes this could be they need a stair lift put in their house, or they need someone to help prepare meals. And whereas previously they might have been able to buy their own stair lift, my grandparents did that when they moved into a house that had stairs. They were able to buy their own stair lift because they had enough money. But you know, when people do not have enough money, you know that money comes out to build the stair lift. You know that comes out of the government purse somewhere, right? Right, Rachel? And when people are unable to afford, say, you know, getting pre-packaged food, which is already chopped, you know, if you have a disability that makes it hard to stand at the counter or to use a knife, then they have to get one of their friends and family to be like, oh, don't worry, I'll chop up the food and I'll put the food on for you. And then that person does not have unlimited time to dedicate to caring for that person. And then that means that they have to take leave from their job. And then that means that they have to apply for benefits.
Yeah.
Which is a fucking joke, because if anyone has ever tried to get carer's allowance, it's a fucking joke. It's like, you have to do 35 hours a week of caring for this person. And by the way, it's 140 quid. And you're like, do you think that 145 divided by 35 equals the minimum wage? So I can't wait to see what happens by the time this podcast comes out, Sarah. By the time this episode comes out, who knows what Rachel will do? She's got so many bright ideas.
I know.
If anyone is thinking, wow, I hope Emma's time has been a bit better, that she is able to then go, hey, here's a nice restitude. I went out for my aunt's birthday yesterday. That was nice. There we go. Solved it. I got into a few political rants in the episode recap, and Sarah gets to spot which ones they are.
Beautiful. I love a good game of spot around.
Yeah. It should be pretty obvious, because suddenly I veer straight away from the episode recap, and one of them I'm not entirely sure has a lot to do with the part in the episode that we were on, or the entire episode. I think that when I did the recap, I might have just been angry. So there's that.
Did you go off on a tangent again?
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest, Sarah. What is an episode of this podcast without me going off on an unrelated tangent and complaining about some government or another?
Good point. Yes.
Yeah. I think that in future, what I should do is when I'm doing the episode recap, I should just send you like 3 unrelated words and be like, guess what it is this time. Okay. Do you want it? Do you want me to give you the words?
Sure, go on.
Okay. Junior doctors strike. Okay, keep that. That's one. And then we have 9/11 conspiracy theorists.
Ooh.
And if you're thinking, how does that tie in? Sarah will also be thinking the same as you.
Yeah.
Because
there's a structure
like, this does not relate to the episode in any way.
Oh.
Why does Emma do these episode recaps when she is tired? I wish she wouldn't watch the news right before she wants to record. I don't think I actually have a third one. I think it's just those two, 9/11 conspiracy theorists and junior doctors strike.
Oh.
And if anyone wants to guess in the comments, I don't know if there is a comments. If anyone would like to guess on our Instagram before we get there how I've related those two topics in, go crazy. But first of all, we're going to take a short break before we do the episode recap. Wheels up.
Wheels up.
We open on an American flag fluttering in the breeze in Franklin Public Park, Des Plaines, Illinois. There are people playing football. We see a gun lining up to shoot. And then we get beautiful transition shots where the camera appears to go down the barrel of the gun that is pointed at the people in the park. It zooms out again and you see Reed with Hotch at the FBI training facility in Quantico. Reed has to retake his firearms certification and he's getting some extra training. He is not good, but he would do a lot better than I did. I did axe throwing in December and it was bad. Don't worry. Hotch steps in to show Reed how it's done, and he doesn't actually have any qualms about whether Reed is going to pass or not. He also, he's cool, calm, collected when he's taking his shot. And it's kind of like you just have to relax, kid. It cuts back to the park. There are the boy who's playing American football with his dad. He's gone over to grab the football. The dad is lying on the ground and the boy thinks his dad is playing a weird joke on him. You know, the kind of weird jokes dads play where they lay on the ground and pretend to be dead. You know, that very common joke that you would play on your child. So anyway, it gets really sad because the boy walks over and he finds out that the dad is actually bleeding quite heavily from the stomach. He understandably starts freaking out, but there's not a whole lot of time to panic because the unsub is lining up another shot. Again, it cuts back to Reed and Hotch in the shooting range, and Reed is saying, I'll never be able to shoot like you. And Hotch is like, yeah, you don't have to carry a gun as a profiler. But Reed's like, yeah, but you have 2. And Hotch crouches down to reveal the one in his ankle holster, which he takes out and shoots at the target. Hotch recounts that Gideon once told him you don't have to carry a gun to kill someone. Spencer doesn't understand the metaphor here. And then we get more of those transition shots between the park and the shooting range through the chart of the gun. But then it cuts to the bullpen. Reed has failed the qualification, Elle tells Gideon, and Gideon brushes it off. Reed can take it again in 2 weeks. We didn't hire him for his shooting skills, you know? Yeah. But Elle is a bit more serious. She's saying he's gonna feel embarrassed about it. Don't do anything to make him feel more embarrassed about it. And she says it specifically to Morgan. And Morgan who has like a big brother relationship with Reed. Sarah, would you say that this is typical for like an older sibling to find out their younger sibling messed up with something and then ribbing them about it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so anyway, Morgan is a bit of a dick and he promises to play nice. And then as soon as Reed comes in, he goes over and he's so sympathetic. Oh, hey, Reed, you know, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. And then hands him a fucking rape whistle. Like, you're a dick. I don't even know how close you are because you've only been, like, Reed very much seemed like he was in the training facility with Gideon at the start of episode 1. So he's probably just come onto the team. He's been there like 6 months. I don't know that you're close enough to like rib him like this. But anyway, we don't have a lot of time to dwell on the fact that Morgan is a dick because JJ is now bringing them a case. And it's not a sniper. That's very important. Not a sniper. Because the public don't think the FBI have a great track record with snipers. And snipers are also trained, which this guy is not, apparently. So they are called L.D.S.Ks, long-distance serial killers. Elle asks, how many people have you caught with the profile? Like, how many long-distance serial killers have you caught? You know, don't worry about it. I've always said that solving these kind of crimes is more about vibes than evidence. Just chill. Eventually we'll catch one. Yeah, it turns out they've caught absolutely zero with that profile. It happens to be that the reason is because you don't have a lot of long-distance serial killers, so you do not have a lot of data on which to build a profile. So at least there are less long-distance serial killers. It's a shame that they all seem to be quite nearby serial killers. We find out that over the past 3 weeks, there have been 3 shootings, each escalating by one victim per incident. First of all, Henry Sachs is shot and killed in a parking lot. Then there are 2 teens who are shot while playing basketball. And then there are 3 victims in the Franklin Park shooting. Aside from Henry Sachs, who was killed, the other 5 victims survived, but are unable to identify the shooter. One of the current victims has a bullet lodged in his spine, and doctors are not sure if they can take it out without paralyzing him. So that's a really big concern. Yeah. You don't want to risk that. So the team go over what they know about LDSKs. They're often male with law enforcement or military experience. They like to contact the police or the media, and they give the example of the Beltway killers who left a tarot card at one of their shootings and then rang the tip line. Now, as I always say, I'm not here to tell people how to commit crimes better. Ideally, do not commit crimes at all. But I am saying you're very stupid. I mean, I guess that the point is they don't want to get away with the crimes. They want the infamy related to the crimes. But I'm just like, that's really stupid. Look, if you are one of these people who's like, hey, do you know what? I bet I could commit the perfect murder and never get caught. Look, you can have like, you can do other things and be the best at them. Get a hobby. Or have you ever thought about entering pub trivia nights? Like, go to all of them, learn the trivia, win some drinks, win the meat raffle, whatever that is. You know, just do that instead. I mean, hell, if you want to fulfill your superiority complex and you cannot think of a way, buy a T-line shorthand book, and you can write shorthand, and as long as you get to 80 words a minute, you can literally have beaten me, and you can feel really good about that. You did better than me at shorthand.
Maybe bit.
I do not actually guarantee that I got 80 words a minute. That was the minimum you needed to graduate. And I think that Margaret might have just been like, we're not running journalism again next year. Emma does have like firsts or 2 1s in every other subject. I cannot fail her because she can only do 60 words a minute shorthand. I literally, like, I don't know how she would have dealt with that.
I don't know about you, but 13 years later, I'm still traumatized by dictation.
Yeah, whenever, so when I did the first episode, I wrote it out, and I wrote it out longhand because I'd forgotten how to do shorthand. I'm really sorry, Margaret. I hope you're not listening to this.
But
yes, I will apologize to Margaret. So anyway, the common thread that they find between all of the victims is that they're not dying from their wounds. So Hodgposits is the guy doing this on purpose because he just wants to wound them and have them suffer that way? Or is he doing it because the torso is a bigger area to hit than, say, a kill shot to the head? So they meet the captain of the local police at the park, and they have cones to say where all the victims were, so they can judge where he was shooting from. They assess that he was shooting from the parking lot. That is, by the way, Reed, Hotch and Morgan, who are at the parking lot. Gideon, JJ and Elle are at the hospital, and they walk in on 2 surgeons having a disagreement about whether or not you could risk removing the bullet from this man because it could paralyze him, and that would not be good. But this surgeon, right, didn't catch his last name. First name is Barry, so that's how we're calling him for the rest of the episode. Barry is like, yeah, I can do it. I can remove the bullets. He'll be fine. Of course you couldn't do it. You're a mere mortal, but I am a god. And I would find this irritating in a co-worker, but like, I work in marketing. It doesn't matter whether, if I make a mistake, no one lives or dies on whether I've used the Oxford comma or not. Yeah, I kind of like that kind of confidence in a surgeon, you know? And on a side note, just while we're here, I have a feeling that because the Labour Party are not doing great, I do have a feeling that there is going to be another junior doctors' strike. I don't have any evidence to back this up, but yeah, could I just implore the British government, pay the junior doctors more?
yes,
These people take our lives in their hands, diagnose us, fix broken bones, remove things from orifices, and pretend to believe us when we say we slipped and fell onto them. Please just pay them more. I write marketing copy to sell people stuff they don't need, like garden sheds and trips to France. I make more an hour than a junior doctor did during the last strikes, which were 2024, I want to say. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were early 2024. Yeah. I should not be making more per hour than a junior doctor. Junior doctors should not be making just above minimum wage.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Do you know what comparable salaries are for junior doctors? Shop assistants at Lidl and shop assistants at Lush. I was a shop assistant. You were a shop assistant. They're not easy jobs. But do you know what? If I forget to upsell someone on a bath bomb gift, no one dies.
Yeah.
So please, God, people with very low stakes jobs like me should not be making more than someone who went to medical school and who I have to trust with my life. These shouldn't be the kind of people that need to get second jobs. Ideally, no one needs a second job. But please, for the love of God, could we at least make sure the emergency services don't have to get second jobs?
The NHS is always on its knees. And then they just ruin the next generation of doctors and surgeons.
Yeah.
So it's going to be in like 20 years.
Exactly. Now look, I don't know CPR. I don't remember the recovery position. If I had to use one of those defibrillators you see in town centres now, it would not go well. Please pay the junior doctors whatever they goddamn ask for.
Yeah.
If they want to be paid in diamonds and gold bullion, do it. I am 0% kidding on this. I cannot stress enough how shit of a position the NHS is in because of 15 years of austerity that was started by the Tories and more or less continued by Starmer. I saw a bus ad the other day where they were like, hey, do you know how much you could make working in British Columbia? No, don't let the doctors move to Canada. What are you doing? We need them here. All frontline medical staff, we need them here. Their job has a point. Do you know what job doesn't have a point? Marketing. If marketing went away, we'd kind of be fine. If doctors went away, we'd be dead. Oh yeah, back to the scene anyway. So this surgeon doesn't shake hands, which, good. I don't want him to in any way injure his hands or get germs. Look, it's just basic health and safety. I think coming after COVID, we know this, but yeah, just don't shake hands with people. You don't need to. It's fine. The doctors are explaining to Gideon that it might leave the man paralyzed if they take the bullet out from him, considering how close it is to his spine. How badly do you really need the bullet? Is it worth this man's paralysis? But so Gideon says, will it be useful? We can find out what sort of ammunition, what sort of gun, etc., etc. I didn't understand because I don't know about guns. But Barry, he's there going, yeah, no, I can get it out. Trust me, I am God. You are mortals. Cut to Hotch, Morgan and Reed in the parking lot again. Hotch notices that the disabled bay, or handicap bay for Americans, it's a long way from the building. It couldn't possibly be longer from the building. I do have a point, like, what if they were just going to the park? Like, if they just wanted to have a picnic in the park, the disabled bay is in the right space for that. It's not just a building you might want to get to. But anyway, I do take his point, and it's weird that there's only one there, just one solitary disabled bay. So what do they think happened? We get a transition shot where Hotch is explaining that the guy would have had to have come to the park at night, decided where he wanted to have his car in order to shoot, near the flagpole so that he can use the direction of the flag as like wind direction and account for that. And then he would need to get a stencil of the disabled parking bay logo and spray paint it to create his own handicap space. And honestly, I think my mum could do with that, so we might try that. So Hotch says that the guy is shooting from inside the car so that he can get away quickly. That means because he's not standing there to watch them in pain, he's not a sadist, he's a sociopath. And also, I did have a thing where I was like, wait, so this guy is basically sitting in his front seat, like the driver's seat, and then crawling over into the back seat, which he's already laid the seats down, and then kind of like opening his boot a little, or trunk, I'm sorry, Americans, and then just pointing the gun out. Like, I don't know, if I was at a park and I just saw some guy scramble from the front seat into like his boot, I'd be like, I have questions.
Bit sus.
Yeah. So back at the hospital with JJ, Gideon, and Elle, they're discussing why the unsub would choose that specific time to attack between 2:55 and 3:15. Gideon says it makes perfect sense because that's when changeover shifts are for the police. The late shift starts at 3 o'clock and the morning shift finishes at 3:30. JJ asks, wouldn't that mean there are more cops on the street? But no. Turns out the first half hour of your shift, you're spent getting briefings on what's going on, where your route is. And the last half hour of your shift, you're doing paperwork, you're booking in criminals, etc., etc. So between 3 and half 3, there are almost no cops on the street. I mean, that seems like a glaring error to me, but I'm not in charge of scheduling police. Ideally, I don't think there should be a time when there is no cops on the street at all. But, it's certainly not how I would defund the police. But Elle asks how many people outside law enforcement would know that. And then she says, but you already figured that out. The unsub must be a police officer. Gideon doesn't get a chance to answer because Surgeon Barry comes in having just done the surgery to dump a bullet fragment inside a little Ziploc bag on the table in front of them. And Jesus Christ, in another episode, this guy could play a really convincing drug dealer. Like, one that's angry at you specifically. Here's your fucking coke. So Gideon says they're going to get the bullet to Garcia, which I don't really understand because she's more about computers and
That's right.
I don't know. Yeah, I was like, sorry, wait. And also, how are you getting it to her? Are you just like running it straight back to Quantica? Is this like some early version of Google image search that only Garcia can run? It's very confusing.
Yeah.
But we never get an answer to that. Cut to the police station and Morgan is answering the call, and who could it possibly be from? But it's Garcia, who tries to entice Morgan in some witty conversation, but Morgan just says, who's this? Then says, I need more information about the unsub. Hotch and Reed are discussing with the captain the possibility of the shooter being law enforcement. She posits that he could possibly be in the military, which Morgan comes over and he kind of says, well, it's probably like a specialized unit, like the Marines. They determine that the unsub is probably just trying to show off how smart he is, or how smart he thinks he is. Unfortunately, Garcia can't pin down a geographic location for the unsub to be in because the crime scenes have been so varied. The only way they can rectify this is with more crime scenes. And Hotch says they won't have to wait long because this guy has something to prove. Always upsetting when the thing is basically like, yeah, well, we need more crime scenes. So more people have to die. Great. So cut to a restaurant and there's a couple who are discussing what I assumed would be their child getting suspended from school. The woman takes a sharp intake of breath and says she doesn't feel very well, she's going to go to the bathroom, but oh shit, she stands up and she is bleeding from the abdomen. And then more shots start ringing off. There's a girl there who is just screaming, and I don't know, I just felt like she was like not doing anything apart from covering her ears. And I was like, what is this? Why did you film this? So there are 3 more victims with non-fatal wounds, which Elle tells us, and it's only been 2 days since the last shooting, which means that he is escalating, likely because of the media and police involvement. Gideon says it's just going to get worse. The team decide it's time to deliver the profile, but I think it's more of a way to test the police because they believe that one of them is the unsub. So JJ starts the briefing by stressing that the cops should not reveal the details of the profile to the media or it could get someone killed. Now, that's a bit of a Chekhov's gun situation. Actually, I'm not too sure on my metaphors there. Yeah, that profile is definitely going straight to the media. And then we get a reveal that they are literally looking for a man in his 30s. Woo! They said the podcast title. So Hotch is like, we're looking for a guy aged 30 to 40. He drives a large car, but not so large that it's noticeable. We get a transition shot from the photo on the crime board to what the unsub would have seen inside the car's trunk. Hotch says the unsub suffers from narcissistic and paranoid personality disorders as the screen flickers from a man walking about half naked pointing a gun at people to, I've put what looks like a cartoon about the Black Death, but that was actually the Death Tarot card. It zooms out a second later, so it's a reference to the Beltway Killers. Still no reference for the half-naked guy. So, Sarah, do you know? No. Hotch says the unsub will be unable to feel empathy and will blame his shortcomings on those around him. He will have a chaotic work history, frequent changing jobs. He'll seek out high status jobs that give him the kind of power he feels like he should have. Hotch reveals that they think the killer is in law enforcement, which is why he strikes between the first and second shift changes, and why he changes jurisdictions. The beat officers play this off as a joke, which is odd if you think about it, because, sorry, why are you laughing at the idea that someone you work with could be a killer? That wouldn't be a laughing situation for me. So luckily, someone is taking this seriously, and the guy who, maybe he's the sergeant, maybe the woman earlier wasn't the captain, maybe she was from the FBI. So he calls Hotch into his office, and Hotch is like, I'd like to reenact the third shooting, really get inside the unsub's head. I'm a bit confused about this, because there is another shooting that has happened, so what makes the third shooting so special? But Hotch says it would also help with witness recall to see if there was anything that could trigger their memories. We cut to Gideon and Reed. Gideon does the thing we've all accidentally done at one time or another and asked a co-worker how they're doing in a way that suggested you wanted an honest response. Reed takes this as an opportunity to complain about not having his gun because he basically looks like a teacher's assistant without one. I suppose he technically was in the first episode. And I'm like, sorry, Reed, do you know this isn't about you? You know someone died, right? You know that there are at least 8 injured people, right? Like, I love you, buddy, but someone is dead, and maybe the biggest thing going on is not you failing your firearms qualification. Gideon says, hey, I'm not worried about how you look. And Reed's like, hey, I'm going to take this opportunity to ask you what you meant about not needing a gun to kill someone. And Gideon says, well, the way we beat the unsub is by doing what they can't. Empathizing. And I'll be completely honest here, I think Gideon's got it right, because there is nothing that would make me prefer a gun to the stomach faster than someone claiming to be an empath coming up to me. No, I'd actually rather be shot. So I guess, that's another group that we're alienating today. Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer, and empaths.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it continues. Place your bets now on which group Sarah and I will alienate at the end.
Yeah.
Reed says that Gideon is only trying to make him feel better about not carrying a gun. And Gideon's like, I don't care. Someone is dead. Well, he says, I don't care if you carry a gun or not, but I would have finished it off with, someone is dead, Reed. Stop whining. But, Gideon, and he's just like, the profile is mightier than the sword. And Reed plays this off, but Gideon's like, hey, the footbath killer held a shotgun to the back of my head. I'm here, he's not. And storms off, which, honestly, the only way to end a conversation with the co-worker. Cut to the park, where Gideon is with the 2 people from the police station who actually take the FBI seriously. And they're in a little van with loads of cameras watching out at the park. They have agents standing in all the right places for the reenactment, playing victims, witnesses, bystanders. But while they're doing the reenactment, a news report is going off live from the entrance to the park. The reporter is leading with the story that the FBI told the police department the shooter was one of them. JJ asks the police captain who would have leaked this. The only people who had the profile were your officers, and this implicates them. And I feel like you knew they were going to leak it. Come on, JJ. But yeah, why would you leak information that implicates you or someone you work with? Because these type of people do talk to the media. You know that. You know that long-distance serial killers insert themselves into investigations. They talk to the media. Why would they not talk to the media now? I think that the police would have done that because they don't think it's one of them and they wanted to embarrass or annoy the FBI, and this seems like a good way to do it. So JJ, Gideon, and the two police officers go straight down to the reporter and demand to know who his source is. As journalism students, me and you were taught about how important it is to keep sources confidential, but we were also told we do have to weigh that against possible imprisonment. And I remember at least one teacher admitting she didn't think she'd ever go to prison in order to keep a source secret.
Yeah.
So the reporter is getting arrested. He tells the camera operator to continue filming because obviously the FBI is arresting him when he is basically serving as, a member of the free press. That's not great. JJ informs the reporter that the FBI considers the shooting an act of terrorism and he'll be detained under the Patriot Act. Yes, in case you've forgotten, this season takes place 4 years after 9/11. Which obviously a pretty dark time already, considering the major loss of life from the terrorist attacks. But there was an erosion of civil liberties that we saw in the aftermath of 9/11 and in other Western countries as well, not just the US. And I can look it up. I won't do now, but there was a lot of police departments over the entire nation overusing the Patriot Act in order to over-police. I'd argue that's not very patriotic. But we don't have time for me to get on a soapbox about the Patriot Act. However, let's add to the people we're alienating from the podcast. And if you're someone who thinks that 9/11 was an inside job or jet fuel can't melt steel beams, yeah, go away.
Yeah.
9/11 conspiracy theorists can fuck all the way off.
Oh,
I do not have a lot of faith in the US government, and I think George W. Bush was and still is an idiot.
yeah.
I don't have much sympathy for anyone in the Bush family, but I don't think that George W. Bush orchestrated the killings of 3,000 Americans and counting, because let's not forget all the first responders who had died or been diagnosed with life-limiting illnesses following them going into the Twin Towers. I'm just going to say Bush didn't do 9/11, which is perhaps the coldest take anyone has ever had on a podcast. Back to the episode, anyway.
Yeah.
The reporter folds quite quickly, giving the cell phone number to the FBI agents, and they get Garcia to look up the number, which is odd because don't the police departments have a log of all of their officers' numbers? You know, how you call them to say, hey, can you come into work today? Someone's called in sick. Never mind, don't look into it. No facts, just vibes. All the while, Garcia is looking up the number. While she's doing this, you see the crosshairs of the gun scope move across the park, pointing at different agents. And you're not sure whether this is the vantage point of the person playing the unsub or the unsub themselves, who could also be there. Hotch is pressing Garcia to get the name of the caller, and she explains she has to look in the database first. She can't just type his number into Google. And then he's like, yeah, where's the location of the phone? And she's like, it's in the park. The unsub is in the park. Hotch presses Garcia again for a name, which, oh my God, dude, why didn't you just... No, moving on. Garcia's like, it's Scott McCarthy. Hotch repeats this to the FBI agent. And anyway, she is saying, well, McCarthy's the unsub. And he's like, yes, where is he? And she's like, no, he's playing the unsub. The person in the trunk of the car pointing a gun at FBI agents and police officers is the unsub. This was like a real Four Candles sketch. Four candles.
That is a classic one.
Yeah, but that is literally what I felt like. Like, he's the answer. Yes, that's what I'm telling you. He's the answer. So the entire police force surrounds the car to take McCarthy out. They set off a smoke bomb, and it's the agent's cue to move. L drops down. Morgan tackles Reed to the ground. McCarthy is just really confused as his boss yells at him to throw the rifle out and show his hands, and gets told in no uncertain terms to just do it or I'll kill you. So McCarthy does it. He chucks the gun out, he puts his hands out, he tries to get out of the car as quietly and slowly as possible, wondering what the fuck is going on. He is then tackled to the ground by riot cops. Sorry, that was a very British thing. Most cops here do not have guns. It's only the anti-terror police that have guns. I don't even know if the riot squads have them. Never mind. Anyway, so the SWAT team tackles him to the ground. As they're marching McCarthy over to take him in for questioning, he is shot in the head and falls to the ground. So he's not the unsub. He just talked to the reporter, and the unsub seems to be wounding the other victims on purpose because he can definitely take a kill shot. Everyone else drops to the floor. Back at the police station, they're asking how McCarthy ended up playing the unsub, and gets told that it was a punishment given by his senior officer for goofing off during the profile. Like, sorry, you are grown adults. This is, I assume, a very serious job. Yeah, sure, don't mouth off during a briefing, but why would you be like, right, well, your punishment is we're going to shut you in the car? A very weird punishment. Anyway, so the team ponder why the unsub didn't just wound McCarthy. It's possible he was sending a message to the police, to the FBI. Did McCarthy know who the unsub was and now has to be silenced? We'll never know. Garcia has to narrow down the location profile. Well, she has done it, and there are only two places that possibly align. The hospitals. Reed gives a breakdown on the type of hero complex that leads people to murdering or attempting to murder people and then finding glory by reviving them. He cites a nurse called Richard Angelo who has 25 known victims, because hospitals don't keep notes of who almost dies, and maybe they should start. Just maybe we should have a thing where it's like, okay, it was very weird that that person crashed all of a sudden.
Yeah.
We'll make a note. Start making notes. So Gideon is flashing back to meeting the surgeon, Barry, and he's like, now, I know that I'm already prone to disliking Barry. So honestly, I'm like, yeah, he's probably the answer. Why not? Let's go with it. Back at the hospital, the team are calling Garcia. She gives them a background check on Barry, one you think the hospital would have on file because they employ him. But he served in the military, basically. That was it. He got a degree. He worked in various hospitals. All things that I think that employers would keep information on, but whatever. No facts, just vibes. Gideon questions whether Barry's had any recent traumas, discipline at work, etc., etc., and it's revealed that last month he was passed over for chief of surgery. So Gideon orders they get a warrant to toss Barry's house for the murder weapon. And rather than just leave the guy alone for a minute, or, not barge into the sterile area where he is having, I think, just done a surgery, but still, don't have random people walk in, Gideon decides to go in and interrogate the guy right now. Barry mocks Gideon for thinking that he could be the unsub, stating he doesn't feel very comfortable with that given what happened to the last suspect. Gideon asks if Barry has ever heard of hero homicide, and Barry is like, would it be less suspicious if more of my patients died? And Gideon's like, yeah, that would actually be less suspicious. And I don't think it would. I think that would raise other criminal things. Like, it would make you think you're not a very good surgeon and you shouldn't be working there at all. The rest of the team are gathering in on what is essentially just outside the scrubbing in room, outside the OR, and they're being told that Barry drives a 2-seat red Maserati. I'm not into cars, but that sounds like a douchebag car. It also does not sound like the kind of car that would blend in at a parking lot or one that you would be able to effectively shoot from very easily. Gideon decides to do his famous trick of baiting someone you think is the unsub, and I should be, I suppose, grateful that no one is being held at gunpoint this time. Barry says when people are on my operating table, they need God. They don't need me to be a wallflower, which fair enough. And then he says that he has an alibi for when McCarty was shot because he was having sex in his office with another doctor. Slightly gross note. He also says, I'm not the only one who thinks I'm a god. And if I heard that, I would not be going back to him. I would be like, you need to leave me alone. So Hotch and Reed walk down to the emergency room to check on the alibi. They go in, they ask a nurse, hey, do you know where this doctor is? And he goes, yeah, I'll go right off to find her. Hotch says that Angelo killed because he had no power in his life, but Barry is treated like a god. He doesn't need to feel superior. And he couldn't operate on all 3 people, so there's no need to injure more than one person. So Hotch begins looking elsewhere at the nurses who are triaging the sick patients. Reed points out that the police and the ER staff are on the exact same schedule. So the unsub isn't shooting at the time that he's normally shooting as a countermeasure. It's because he needs to get to his shift. And honestly, I have worked in places where the manager would be like, yeah, if you've got to kill someone on your way in, make sure you're not late. You still need to be here 10 minutes before to get into uniform. So Hotch says, well, I'm going to ring the others and let them know the new theory. But a nurse tells him, hey, you can't use your mobile in the hospital. And oh my goodness, how long was it until we were able to leave our phones on in a hospital? It's like how they still have all these stickers on the petrol pumps where they're like, oh, please turn your phone off. We worry that your phone is going to blow up our petrol station. I do not remember when we just started being like, nah, we're just going to leave our phones on in the hospital. So anyway, Hotch's theory is immediately rebuffed by the doctor who tells him they haven't hired anyone new in 2 months. So certainly not a man who transferred from Arlington 2 weeks ago. Meanwhile, Gideon is talking to JJ and Elle, counting out Barry as the suspect. Police officers are swarming the halls and they go right past that nurse from earlier who said, I'm just going to get the doctor, be right back. So clearly he has not got the doctor. And in his defense, every time I get sent on a task at work, I do find myself distracted and doing something else, but not the original thing. So, fair enough. However, the guy goes to his locker, takes off his white coat to reveal a ranger tattoo. So they're still talking to the doctor and trying to explain to her the profile of the unsub. He's in his 30s, he's arrogant, he's late all the time, he blames others for his mistakes. Why are all of these unsubs based off of me? Then the doctor suddenly realizes, you're talking about Philip Dowd. She starts to freak out because he's on shift, but Hotch is like, hey, calm down, don't cause a scene, and fuck you. Like, what a thing to say.
Yeah.
That's how you're supposed to react when you are thinking, crap, I think my co-worker is a murderer. So Hotch tells Reed to go and get the rest of the team. Reed tries to run off, but Hotch stops him and says, like, just be normal, dude. Don't run. That's a major mistake because Dowd rounds the corner, hits Reed in the face and whips out a gun that he points at the security guard. Dowd then begins shooting, hitting the lights so they blow, so you're all in the dark for the rest of the episode. Hotch points his gun at Dowd, but Dowd says, yeah, better be a kill shot, because if not, I'm going down shooting. So Hotch surrenders his gun, which Dowd takes before ordering Reed to go over next to Hotch, tells Hotch to take Reed's gun, and then reveals that Reed doesn't actually have a gun. And Dowd forces the security guard to zip tie the hands of Reed, Hotch, and then himself, just so that no one could possibly threaten Dowd. He then knocks the security guard to the floor, orders Reed to kneel on the floor. Hotch, however, seems to just be like, well, I'm going to take a seat. I'm not doing what you say, I'm just going to take a seat. Dowd begins to bring up the fact that Reed is not wearing a gun. Even when Reed explains that as a profiler, he doesn't have to, Dowd, like most people encountering the BAU for the first time, scoffs at profiling, even though Reed says, well, that's how we found you. Reed, I'm sorry, baby, please. Don't listen to Gideon. Stop riling unsubs up. It's not going well. But Reed swiftly gets cut off by Hotch, who's saying, shut up. And the first time I watched this, I would have been like, well, what the hell is wrong with Hotch? Why is he snapping at Reed? So how did you feel about it, Sarah?
I thought he was a bit of a dick in that bit, but I figured that he was doing it in a way to kind of like bring the unsub on his side kind of thing.
Yeah. So Dowd asks Reed to tell him about the profile, and Hotch goads Reed by sarcastically calling him genius. Dowd seems much more interested in Hotch delivering the profile, mainly because Hotch sounds kind of pissed off and clearly sounds like he's got a bit of an interesting story. So Hotch, rather than baiting the unsub like Gideon would, decides to big up the guy. Hey, you're really clever. You shot 11 people in public and executed a cop in front of the FBI and got away with it. You're well cool. And at this point, he's basically saying that the FBI put him in this situation where he is unarmed and facing up against a shooter. The SWAT team, by the way, getting ready outside the ER to jump in and basically siege the place if they have to. Morgan is giving Gideon, JJ, and Elle a rundown about Dowd's early life, from joining the Rangers to getting an honourable discharge to working as a cop for Arlington for 9 months until they found out he lied about the discharge. Then he got his nursing licence and bounced from hospital to hospital. Cut back to the ER. Hotch is telling Dowd that Dowd is definitely the smartest, most special boy in every room, saying, of course, everyone's just trying to sabotage you. It's not your fault that things keep happening. And you did try to save all those people. Hotch then plants the idea in Dowd's face to barricade the door, saying that he and Reed should do it. Dowd is suspicious, but Hotch is angry enough to make him believe it. Dowd asks, is this some kind of trick? And Hotch just looks like he is not playing around. And Dowd's like, hey, yeah, the barricade is a good idea, but why do you want to help me? And Hotch is like, I don't care about you. I just want to make things harder for the rest of the FBI. Dowd picks on the fact that Hotch said they knew you were down here. Not they know is in present tense, but they knew, like they knew when they sent Hotch into the ER. Hotch wants Dowd to believe that the other agents on the FBI team are setting Hotch up. And Hotch is being a bit of a bitch, saying, and I got stuck with this kid who can't shoot his way out of a wet paper bag. And then he's telling the story like the other agents were trying to get him killed, and admits that a lot of people could die in the crossfire when the police break down the door. So Dowd says, yeah, okay, barricade the door then. Gideon doesn't know exactly what Hotch and Reed are going to do, but he does want to buy them more time, so he implores the police captain to please, God, give them more time before you send your teams in. Of course, the captain points out quite rightly that the agents are at least disarmed at this point, and speculates how they're going to do anything without their weapons. But Gideon says, don't worry, they do have a weapon. The profile. You know how that often kills people. So the captain says, yeah, okay. doesn't fucking believe you, but you've got 3 minutes. Hotch he's seeming like he's really just antagonizing Reed at this point, and he mocks him for having failed the firearms qualification. And Reed is just looking so despondent, as Hotch says twice a year he has to listen to Reed whine about having not passed his qualification exam. Dowd then bonds with Hotch, saying, yeah, the people I work for are also assholes who sabotage me. Hotch says, hey, you know what? Put Reed by the barricade so when the police come in, they'd have to shoot him. Outside, the police are just about to send in the team, the SWAT team, while the other agents hold their heads in their hands. And then Hotch begs Dowd, just let me kick the shit out of Reed because Reed's made my life miserable for 3 fucking years. So the SWAT team are running up the stairs, wanting to begin their assault. Hotch launches his own assault on Reed by repeatedly kicking him in the stomach. And this is actually really violent, so I'm like looking away. Reed grabs hold of Hotch's leg as if to stop him kicking, but this is not successful. Reed is then curled up in the fetal position, crying, basically. Dowd is really enjoying his new relationship with psychopath Hotch, but then he glances down to see Hotch's ankle holster empty. And just as he's putting it together, Reed flips the fuck over and shoots him in the goddamn head. Just as the SWAT team are prepared to go in, all guns blazing, Hotch yells, federal agents, hold your fire, and explains that Reed, Hotch, and the hostages are all fine. Well, not fine, they had quite a lot of shock, and most of them came to the hospital with some sort of emergency or another, but they haven't been shot in the head, which is the good news. Outside, Reed is being checked over by a paramedic in the ambulance, which begs the question, sorry, was there not any medical staff in the hospital that could attend to him? He has to go outside and sit in the cold to be looked over by a paramedic. Never mind, we're going to blow straight past this. Hotch is coming up to Reed to apologise and to congratulate him on his shot. Reed, perhaps jokingly, perhaps not, says he was actually aiming for Dowd's leg. But as we heard earlier, it better be a kill shot. If it'd been anything less, I would have gone down pulling my trigger. So I think Reed did mean to shoot in the head. And then you get one of the most famous Spencer Reed lines of all time. I was a 12-year-old child prodigy at a Las Vegas public high school. You kick like a 9-year-old girl. Oh, just iconic. And Hotch says that as far as he's concerned, Reed has passed his qualification, so Reed walks off and throws the rape whistle to Morgan again, which Morgan grudgingly accepts. Back on the jet, everyone's like, hey, Spencer, you okay? Spencer tells Gideon that he understands about the not needing a gun to kill someone, and then he's like, it does help. Reed says, I shouldn't feel bad about having killed Dowd, or I should feel bad about having killed Dowd, but I don't. And Gideon's like, just because you don't know how you feel doesn't mean you don't feel. He then comforts Reed by saying, this is the only option you had. He would have killed a lot more people, even if you just let him live for the rest of the day. And as the scene ends on the jet, there's music coming in with the lyrics that are just where we belong. Where we are is just where we belong, which is kind of hitting because perhaps at the beginning of the day, having failed the qualification, Reed's feeling like I don't belong in the FBI, I should go back to the training academy, I don't have a gun, so I'm clearly not good at being in this place. But, maybe he's starting to feel like he does belong there. Sarah, it's time to move on to the episode discussion. Do you want to take us off first with interesting points?
Yes. So, this is the first episode where we see somebody other than Gideon saying one of the booking quote. And this time we finally have a return jet scene again.
Yes!
But no wheels up. So
No. Bad. No. Moving on to notable guest stars, we have Timothy Ormondson as Philip Dowd. He was in Psych as Detective Carlton Lassiter and Judging Amy as Sean Potter. both series that I've never seen. But Marcus Giamatti, he played Dr. Barry. He's the brother of Paul Giamatti, and he was also in Judging Amy as Peter Gray. Nike Ducasse played Cheryl Mason, who was the local FBI agent at the scene. She was in Judging Amy as Constance Tyler. This is only one episode, but the reason that I am bringing this up is because also Detective Shay Clavin. So, I have something insane to tell you. So, at the end of the wiki page for the L.D.S.K on the Criminal Minds fandom wiki, there was this comment which was a bit unhinged. They were like, why don't you have a page dedicated to Paula Newsome? She was the female detective that they were speaking to all episode. This person was like, why have you not got a page on Paula Newsome? Are you not taking this seriously? Like, how could you do this? And it's like, buddy, I also think she was good in this episode. And I'm really glad that she had a long career, has a long career. No one on fandom wiki pages are getting paid. And you can just enter your own page, right? Just like some advice in general. If you think you could do it better, do it. It's a free resource. It's available to anyone to edit. So anyway, Paula Newsome, she was in one episode of Judging Amy, which is more evidence that I think the casting director just really liked that show. She was also in CSI Vegas as a leading role, Max Roby. The new Twilight Zone series from 2020, which I really liked. I was a massive fan of that. And Chicago Med, Women's Murder Club. She's got a lot of roles that she's done. Tony Dennison, he is Sergeant Wayne Reigart here. He reprises this role in season 15 of Criminal Minds. So look forward to that when we're in our 50s, Sarah. Yeah. He was also in Major Crimes and The Closer as Andy Flynn. Now we are on to our episode MVP, Sarah.
Ooh.
This is the section where we talk about the kind of person that we feel made the episode. We call them our baby girl or pretty boy because those are the endearments Morgan uses to talk about Garcia and Reed. So, Sarah, do you want to take it away?
So, our pretty boy this episode is Reed. Yeah! Because he passed his firearms qualification by shooting an unsub in the fucking head.
Yep.
And he's such a badass, so we love you, Reed.
Yep. That is truly badass moves.
It was. I was so proud of it.
And yeah. So now we are on to the true crime recap. Sarah, it's time to deliver the profile.
Yes. So this is the section where we talk about true crime cases that relate to today's episode. So these cases have either inspired the content of the episode itself, or the writers have used aspects to create the characters. And the unsub from today's episode, Philip Dowd, who is a long-distance serial killer. He's an army veteran, a former cop, former ER nurse, with a definite case of hero syndrome. So he hasn't need to seek heroism or recognition by creating a desperate situation that only he can resolve himself. So in his case, he's shooting victims from a distance and then rushing into the hospital to save them in the ER. And there's a number of real-life cases that are reflective of his character. And funny enough, both of them were mentioned in the episode. So the first one is the Angel of Death. With this, Philip Dowd's character seemed to have been based on Richard Angelo, whose nickname was the Angel of Death. And he was a male nurse with hero syndrome who endangered the lives of many patients in order to save him, and then get recognition from his co-workers. Richard was born August 29th, 1962 in Long Island, New York. Upon graduating from St. John the Baptist Diocesan High School in 1980, Angelo became a volunteer firefighter, hoping to gain praise for his heroic actions, whilst also enrolling on a 2-year nursing course at L.D.S.K College. Years later, he got a job as an emergency medical technician at the Good Samaritan Hospital in Long Island. Becoming unfulfilled by the praise he was receiving, he devised a scheme to gain more attention by poisoning his patients. And it gets worse. He would inject them with a lethal amount of unprescribed drugs that will put them into a critical condition before then bringing them back from the brink of death. And his plan was first put in motion in September of 1987. However, his first victim died before he could be saved. But unfazed, he continued to poison other patients for the next 5 weeks. Some were saved, some sadly died. Angelo was eventually caught a month later in mid-October after his penultimate victim, who he injected while he was still conscious, managed to summon other nurses with his call button, who saved his life. While Angelo escaped, the victim was able to give a description to the police.
What the fuck? Like, surely, being a firefighter and a nurse, you have enough opportunities to save people's lives without creating more. I understand that this isn't about helping people and it's about some people being fucked in the head. Yeah. But literally, what the fuck? You can already save people. If I'm in a hospital, a nurse is already making my day better by being like, oh, good. Hey, here's the painkillers you need. Don't worry, we're going to do an examination to make sure you're all right. Yeah.
So when police eventually linked the description of the guy who tried to murder the patient, they discovered it was Angelo. So they searched his locker at the hospital and his apartment, finding large stashes of the drugs that he was using to poison the victims with.
How was all of these drugs going missing from the hospital? I mean, I think they were stuff that he'd stolen from the hospital. How can that much stuff go missing and you don't notice it?
Yeah, someone's not doing inventory right.
Look, basically the only thing I've got going on for me is I'm very good at counting.
Yeah.
Look, I'll do it.
Finding these large stashes, Angelo was arrested and charged with multiple counts of second-degree murder. During his trial, 2 psychologists testified that he had dissociative identity disorder, or DID, claiming that he had no knowledge of what was happening as the acts were committed by different alters. However, 2 other mental health experts disagreed with this diagnosis. They claimed that while clearly he had a personality disorder of some kind, it was not DID, and therefore he was fully aware of his actions and their consequences. On January 24th, 1990, Angelo was convicted of 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree manslaughter, 1 count of criminally negligent homicide, and 6 counts of assault. A Suffolk County judge sentenced him to 61 years to life, but at that time the maximum possible term per state law was only 50 years to life.
I mean, I'd argue, what's the fucking difference? Like, even if you sentence me to 50 years to life, I'm still going to be in my 80s when I can first apply for parole.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, what's the difference? Just make it 61, who cares?
I know. Anyway, as of today, Angelo's still serving his life sentence at the Sing Sing Correctional Facility in Ossining, New York, and will become eligible for parole in 2049, when he will be 87 years old, if he hasn't died before then. Yeah.
Yeah, and only eligible for parole. They can still turn him down.
Yeah.
Please turn him down.
So, the Angel of Death's MO. So, victims were poisoned with a lethal combination of the paralytic drugs Pavlon and Anectine. that was administered via the IV tubes. Angelo would then wait until they were in a critical condition before rushing back into the scene to remedy these overdoses and rescue them. And we have a list of a number of his known victims.
Yeah, I feel it's very important to say their names.
Yes. So on the first victim was on September the 8th of 1987. John Stanley Fisher, age 75, from Amityville, Long Island. And he was in the hospital initially suffering from stroke. He sadly died. A week later, September the 16th, Milton Pulteney, 75, from Lindenhurst, Long Island, had just had gallbladder surgery. He also died as a result of Angelo's actions. On September the 21st, Joseph Francis O'Neill, 79, from West Islip, Long Island. He was in hospital with gastrointestinal problems. He sadly died also. October the 5th, John Hayes, 53, from Long Island, also died. October the 9th, Frederick Legoy, 55, from Babylon, Long Island. He died after being in hospital for a prostate surgery. October the 11th, Gerolamo Kucic, 73, initially from Yugoslavia, but was visiting Dix Hills in Long Island. He survived, and he was the one who led police to Angelo.
Thank God for him.
His final victim was on October the 16th. Anthony Green, 57, from North Babylon, Long Island. He was in hospital suffering from COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. He died as a result of Angelo's actions. At least 30 plus other cases have been suspected, but sadly no information is available about those victims.
That's really horrific. Because those families don't have closure.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking, my relative went into the hospital in 87 in Long Island, you're thinking at that point, did they die just because it was their time, or did they die because this guy fucking murdered him?
Yeah. Like just the list of people we know, there's stuff they're in hospital for. A lot of it wasn't terminal.
Yeah,
some
exactly.
Some were surgeries, some were just temporarily in a state of where they needed help, but they could have easily gone back home.
Yeah, exactly. Like, when I was growing up, we had a friend of the family who'd had a stroke in the late 80s, and he lived until 2007, 2008. Yeah. Like, those people could have had, decades longer.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think the next bit is going to be any barrel of laughs, but...
No, it's not.
Yeah, sorry. It turns out the light point of the podcast was when I started talking about 9/11 conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's good Daniel, but we do apologize.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Sorry.
So the second real-life case was also mentioned in the episode. They were referred to as the Beltway Killers. They're also named the DC Snipers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there is a few other names, but they're the most common ones. And so Dowd's character appears to be similar to one of the DC Snipers, and his name is John Allen Muhammad. They both, Dowd and Muhammad, are former soldiers and have narcissistic, paranoid, and sociopathic traits. Muhammad was born John Allen Williams on December the 31st in 1960 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was brought up by his grandfather and aunt after his mum died of breast cancer when he was 3 years old, and his dad had just upped and left the family. At the age of 17, he enlisted in the Louisiana Army National Guard before later volunteering for active duty in 1985. In 1987, he joined the Nation of Islam, later changing his surname from Williams to Muhammad in 2001.
My bet is that the Nation of Islam are like, yeah, we'd rather not be associated with him. Can't you guys just talk about Muhammad Ali all the time?
Yeah.
They're like, he was in the Nation of Islam, and he was a great guy. He didn't kill anyone. It's a real low bar we have to pass with men, isn't it? He didn't kill anyone, so I suppose he's great. Also, I don't know anything else about Muhammad Ali. Please don't tell me. I don't want to find out that.
I just know he's a boxer.
Yeah, I don't want to find out anything horrific about him today. So I just wanted to make sure. Don't like suddenly be like, do you know this? I'd be like, please no.
During his time in the army, Muhammad served as a mechanic, truck driver, and a specialist metal worker. And during his time in the army, he earned the Expert Rifleman's Badge, the highest marksmanship qualification badge in weapons training for a basic soldier. Married twice, he was divorced by his second wife, Mildred, in the late 90s. A bitter custody battle over their 3 children ensued, causing Muhammad to flee the country with his children and move to the Caribbean island of Antigua in 1999. During his time in Antigua, he did odd jobs before resorting to making a living selling fake ID papers to the locals who wanted entry to the US.
Great.
So not only have you abducted your children, now you're forging fake documents. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, the least offensive thing he's done so far is forged documents for people to immigrate to the US. Like, that's the least objectionable thing. I mean, the kidnapping of your children and the whole DC sniper thing.
Yeah.
It's a bit higher up the list than some forgery.
So whilst over in Antigua, he met a woman named Una Sion James and her son Lee Boyd Malvo, striking up a friendship with the mother and son. Una later moved to Florida with false documents that he'd provided. So 2 years later, in 2001, Muhammad moved to Bellingham, Washington with the 3 children and Malvo, claiming that Malvo was his stepson. When trying to enroll them at a local school, authorities were able to track him down and return the 3 children to the mother.
Great. Did they take Malvo as well? Oh, I see you say this in the paragraph.
But Malvo was briefly reunited with his own mother in Miami. However, this visit ended with both the mother and son being arrested by Border Patrol, although Malvo was later released and reunited with Muhammad.
Why?
I don't know what happened to the mother. I'm assuming she was sent back. But
yeah, but even so, if she is not able to legally enter the US, how is her son able to legally enter the US? Because they don't mention that. They don't say he's an American citizen, so therefore he could come in. And also, what the fuck do you mean reunited with a guy who you know abducted his 3 biological children and has no biological tie to this child, is not the official like adoptee, hasn't officially adopted him.
Somebody fucked up there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'd like to have a word with the people from 2001 who were like, well, we got those 3 kids back to their mother, we deported Malvo's mum, and really not sure what to do with him now. I mean, could we give him to his mum? Could we have foster care take him? No, just back with this guy who we know abducts children. Wonderful. Great.
And unfortunately it goes downhill from here.
Oh, good.
So Muhammad and Malvo, back in Washington, they're living in a homeless shelter. And Muhammad's funding frequent trips for them across the country.
Okay, I have questions. How are you funding frequent trips across the country when you're living in a homeless shelter? Why are we allowing a child to live in a homeless shelter? Yeah. Because surely you either house them with their parents in, temporary housing, not a homeless shelter. And no, you know what? I can't with this story. You go ahead. You tell me the rest of the story while I just go, what?
So, during these trips cross country, during one trip, the duo had travelled down to Tacoma, which is just south of Seattle, and attempted to murder a friend of Muhammad's ex-wife. Instead, they killed her niece. There is no way.
What?
Yeah. It's just
Yeah, every part of that was upsetting, and it seems like someone should have stepped in to protect this child. And why is he also facing no comeuppance for abducting his own children? Like, was he even taken into custody? Did they even go, hey, do you know it's actually illegal to take your kids and fly them to a different country? I guess we'll never know.
no. On a visit to Mohammed's relatives in Louisiana, the pair bought a 1990 Chevy Caprice and began a series of robberies and shootings across Louisiana, Alabama, and Maryland.
Cool.
And the full-scale spree of random shootings began on October the 5th, 2002, mostly across the states of Virginia and Maryland and Washington, D.C. Over the course of 23 days, 10 people were shot and killed, while a further 3 were injured. During this spree, Mohammed was actually pulled over by police at one point, but was subsequently let go due to no outstanding warrants.
What?
Yeah.
Why didn't he have outstanding warrants?
I have no words. Either the issue with the court case with the wife and the kids was like out of state. Like it wasn't past. I don't know.
Kidnapping is a federal crime.
Someone's fucked up somewhere.
No, continue, sir. Continue. I'll schedule my breakdown for after the podcast.
Okay. So the day after the last shooting, police in Tacoma searched a house where the duo had previously resided in. The police had received a tip from the duo's neighbours with a complaint that the pair had been using the backyard for target practice. Bullets and shell casings found at the house were then later found to be identical to those found at the scenes of the shootings on the East Coast. This is when the duo were linked to the crimes, and on October 24th, 2002, the duo were found sleeping in their car and arrested. A month-long trial later took place with hundreds of pieces of evidence, including photos implicating the pair as being terrorists. In September 2003, Mohammed was convicted and sentenced to death. He sat on death row until November the 10th of 2009, when his sentence was carried out and he was given the lethal injection. On October 2003, for his part in the shootings, Malvo received 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. However, he later appealed to the court, saying that his sentence was inapplicable to him, as he was still a minor at the time of the shootings. He was 17.
I mean, yeah, I just looked that up because I was like, how old is this kid?
Yeah.
So yeah, although you should know that killing is wrong, I would like to say in Malvo's defense, he was a minor who was left in the care of a very odd man for at least a few years, and that's got to fuck you up somehow. Continue, sir. Continue.
So, following his appeal in May 2017, a judge actually agreed with him and overturned his sentence. However, he's still in prison and awaiting a new sentencing to be scheduled.
When did you say he had the sentence overturned?
In 2017.
Oh, it's been 8 years.
8 years later, he's still waiting for a new sentencing to be scheduled.
I'd say it should be quicker, but like you don't just leave someone in prison for 8 years having vacated their sentence. Give them a new one that day. Never mind. Go on, Sara.
Oh, the MO of the DC snipers. The duo killed their victims with a .223 semi-automatic Bushmaster XM-15 sporting rifle that Malvo had stolen prior to the shooting spree. The victims were random, of different ages and sexes, but all victims were hit with a single shot from a distance of 50 to 100 yards that had been fired from the duo's car. And the way they'd worked this was they'd made a small hole in the trunk above the license plate, and kind of like in the episode, laying in the boot or trunk.
Yeah.
And aimed through this hole. Many victims were shot at or near gas stations, And as mentioned in the episode, tarot cards were left as a calling card at several of the scenes with different phrases written on the front of them. Phrases which included, "Call me God," "For you, Mr. Police," and "Do not release to the press." A ransom note was also left at one scene demanding $10 million.
You know, in the last thing where I was doing the true crime, and I was like, I get that the worst thing the murderer does was obviously the murder.
Yeah.
But also insufferable.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about these tarot cards.
Yeah.
For you, Mr. Police, get fucked.
Mr. Sniper.
I know that the worst thing is obviously the murders.
Yeah.
But
so, in a profile of the DC snipers, Mohammed's history showed signs common in mass killers. He grew up poor with a dysfunctional entourage. He was extremely narcissistic, paranoid, obsessive, and controlling. He couldn't cut it out in structured environments. He was discharged from the army, for example. And he lacked long-term goals and was frequently unemployed. The shootings were meant for a way for him to reacquire control over his life. Whereas Malvo suffered from severe abandonment issues and was searching for a father figure when he first encountered Mohammed.
That's depressing.
I know. So the known victims that we are aware of, these took place across 2002 over a number of months. February 16th, Kenya Nicole Cook, 21, from Tacoma, Washington, was the niece of the ex-wife, which was the first shooting. Later that month, there was an unidentified man in Los Angeles. March 19th, Jerry Ray Taylor, 60, from Tucson, Arizona. May 27th, Billie Jean Dillon, 37, from Denton, Texas. September 21st, there was two. There was Million A. Waldemariam, 41, from Atlanta, Georgia, and Claudine Lee Parker, 52, from Montgomery, Alabama. September 23rd, Hong Im Ballinger, 45, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. October 2nd, there was James D. Martin, 55, from Wheaton, Maryland. On October the 3rd, there was quite a number of fatalities, sadly. The first being James L. Buchanan, aka Sonny, 39, from Rockville, Maryland. Prem Kumar A. Walliker, 54, from Aspen Hill, Maryland. Sarah Ramos, 34, from Norbeck, Maryland. Laurie Ann Lewis Rivera, 25, from Kensington, Maryland. And Pascal Charlotte, 72, from Washington, D.C. October 9th, Dean Harold Myers, 53, from Manassas, Virginia. October 11th, Kenneth Bridges, 53, from Fredericksburg, Virginia. October the 14th, Linda Franklin, 47, from Fairfax County, Virginia. And October 22nd, Conrad E. Johnson, aka CJ, 35, from Aspen Hill, Maryland. So among the DC Sniper survivors, we have on May the 18th, a 76-year-old man from Clearwater, Florida. August the 1st, John C. Gator, 52, from Hammond, Louisiana. September the 5th, Paul LaRuffa, 55, from Clinton, Maryland. September the 14th, Rupinder Oberoi, aka Betty, 22, from Silver Springs, Maryland. September the 15th, Mohammed Rashid, 32, from Brandywine, Maryland. September 21st, Kelly Adams, 24, from Montgomery, Alabama. September 26th, Wright Williams Jr., 55, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. October 2nd, Ann Chapman, from Aspen Hill, Maryland. October 4th, Caroline Sewell, 43, from Spotsylvania, Virginia. October 7th, Ivan Brown, 13, from Bowie, Maryland. October the 19th, Jeffrey Hopper, 37, from Ashland, Virginia.
Oh, that was depressing, as always.
As always.
But let's move on to what would Penelope Garcia do. If you are new to the podcast, this is the section where we link people to resources that can help them, a charity, a cause, a petition, etc., etc., etc. Sarah does the UK and I do the US. So, shall I go first this time, Sarah? Because the US,
It's more
the
prevalent.
US does have a lot of gun deaths, a lot more than
Yeah.
the United Kingdom or any other of the
Developed nations and
higher income countries.
Yeah.
If you listen to the last episode, I mentioned how Reagan was shot. He was shot and injured during I think it was a press conference. And the press secretary, Brady, he was next to Reagan. He was shot and suffered a permanent disability. And he died 33 years later from his injuries. There's a charity, or I suppose maybe just a information center. It's called bradyunited.org. And I'm going to read you some statistics about gun violence in America. It begins with the gun violence epidemic is uniquely an American issue because while you don't need a gun to kill someone, it helps. So Americans are 26 times more likely to be shot and killed than others in high-income countries. Every day, 327 people are shot in the United States. Of those, on average, 117 will die. Every day, 23 children are shot in the United States. Mass shootings make up only 1% of all gun violence in America. 60% of gun deaths are deaths from suicide. 37% are homicide, including the 1% of mass shootings. The remaining 3% of gun deaths include law enforcement involved shootings, unintentional shootings, and those that are undetermined. The US has more guns than it has people. They have more gun dealers than they have McDonald's locations. As of 2022, the United States has 121 firearms per 100 residents, making it the only country where there are more civilian-owned firearms than people. 1 in 5 Americans say that they have a family member who has been fatally shot. 1 in 5 have a relative who has died from gun violence. Americans are 2 times more likely to lose a loved one to gun violence than they are to be left-handed. Now, I'm going to go off on a little bit here because sometimes it seems, especially with the way the NRA has bought and paid for a lot of frickin' politicians in the United States, like things aren't going to change, that it is inevitable that the United States will continue to be the only country on earth in which somehow school shootings are just an accepted part of life, that it is normal and natural to put children from kindergarten through the age of 18 into lockdown drills in the same way that you and I had fire drills.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone listening to this podcast is going to feel differently, but this is not normal. This doesn't happen anywhere else. Do you know where else we have mental illness? Everywhere. Do you know where else we have violent video games?
Everywhere.
Yeah, basically everywhere. Do you know where else we have rock music and horror movies? Everywhere on earth.
Mm-hmm.
If this was not about the guns, we would see more of these deaths in other countries.
Yeah.
In the UK, as Sarah will talk about, we have stricter gun laws. We still have guns. There is a gun shop around the corner from my house. And the thing is that I just do not get how anyone is defending their right to have guns over someone's right to live. My Aunt Rosie, who I talk about quite often on this podcast because she was the inspiration behind it, she told me that back in the 80s, at one point he had a gun, her brother, and he belonged to a shooting club. But after either the Hungerford massacre or the Dunblane school shooting, in which 26 people died, I believe.
Oh, young the age of 6, I think.
Yes, they were in infant school. They were my age specifically.
Yeah.
These kids who should be now adults in their 30s, but died in 96 because some guy had a gun. So Rosie's brother gave up his gun after that, not because the government came to take it away, but because he just thought, I don't really find my hobby that fun anymore because people have literally died. It's not fun going to a shooting range, practicing shooting a gun, when I know that someone murdered a lot of 5-year-olds using the same weapon that I use to just go and practice shooting at a club. And I don't get how anyone is defending having a gun still. So at this point, I wanted to highlight a group that I'm assuming most Americans are very, very aware of, but it's marchforourlives.org. These are the group of, well, they were at the time, I will remind you, children in a public school where a school shooter entered and killed their classmates. At least one more of their classmates died from suicide afterwards because of the absolute horror that they witnessed that day. These young people, they did what they should not have been required to do. There are adults in the room and they should have stepped up. It is not on children to work out how to protect themselves against gun violence. Adults should have done something. Adults should still do something. We'll put it in the show notes, but I just wanted to highlight the March for Our Lives. They have joined the fight to end gun violence. They have actually done quite a lot so far, and especially now that we have a man back in office who could not care less. But since 2018, this group of young people have changed the narrative on guns. They have helped pass 300 laws, state laws, on gun control. They have successfully campaigned to defeat over 40 NRA-funded politicians at the ballot box. They have mobilized 2 million young people to vote, and none of this should have been their lives. None of them should have foregone a normal, happy childhood where no one came to murder them in their school, where they had to stand up and call for sensible legislation like, hey, could we get a mental health check on people that are buying guns? Hey, can we make sure that violent criminals are not allowed to buy guns? Common sense things that, again, should not and should never have been a child's responsibility to fix. So I also want to say thank you to the teens involved with March for Our Lives. I've seen David Hogg and Emma Gonzalez speak about it publicly recently, but all of the teenagers, you are doing so much good, and I do believe that change is coming. Gun violence may seem almost inevitable in the United States, but quoting something that I saw on the internet. So did the divine right of kings once. I think that with enough pressure on politicians, with enough effort to get rid of the NRA's money from politics, I think that we can round the corner and reduce gun violence in America and save people's lives.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure that their website is in the description. Sarah, do you want to go?
Yeah. So while the UK has a low incidence of gun violence due to, as Emma mentioned, stringent gun control laws, following the, as she mentioned, the Dunblane massacre in 1996, the people who want to own guns now, they have to apply for licenses. They have like strict background checks, mental health checks.
They have a mental health check.
It's so tough to get a license to own a gun. But while it is low incidence of gun violence, it does occur in the UK. And it can have devastating consequences, not just for young people, but for families and the wider communities. Areas with rampant gun crime can often become breeding grounds for other forms of crime, which can in turn perpetuate a cycle of criminal activity. And by tackling this issue at the source, it's the only way the cycle is going to break. So there's charities up and down the country that are fighting the battle to end all forms of mass violence incidents. And one of such charity is the Tim Perry Jonathan Ball Foundation. And it's based in Warrington, Cheshire, in the northwest of England. Not too far from where I live, actually, probably about 20-30 minute drive. And this foundation is working with schools, communities, police, and local authorities to empower individuals with the skills and knowledge to promote peace, challenge extremism, and build cohesion. The charity is named after two young victims of an IRA bombing in Warrington in 1993, 12-year-old Tim Perry and 3-year-old Jonathan Ball. The foundation delivers educational programs and training in conflict resolution and violence reduction through school assemblies, class discussions, small group work, and where needed with individuals, they do one-to-one sessions. The foundation also provides support for victims and survivors of mass violence incidents. For support, you can contact them on 01925 581 240 or email them at info@timjohn.org.uk. And to find out ways in which you can support the charity, visit timperryjonathanballfoundation.org.uk. We'll put all the information on phone numbers, emails, websites in the show notes after the show. Now that's all for this week, but come back next week when we'll be talking about Criminal Minds Season 1, Episode 7, The Fox.
While you're waiting for the next episode, why not follow us on social media? We're on Instagram at Looking for a Man in His 30s, Tumblr at Looking for a Man in His 30s, or you can email us at lookingforamanhinhis30s@gmail.com. We'll put all the links in the description because Sarah and I have been having a fight with Instagram recently. So we will put the links in there and you can click on it. That will be a lot easier than trying to look for us.
Yeah.
But yes, you can also rate and review us on whichever platform you're listening to podcasts on. It really helps more than you know. Until next time.
This case is closed.